Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. So I wanted to talk about your money profile during the pandemic, and you probably don't know what your money profile is, but we're going to get to that in just a minute. But I want to start off with a little story. When I was 10, my mother gave us $10. Each, my brothers and I, $10 to go on vacation. And we were going to a lot of fun places. We were going down to the beach and down to New Orleans and then up to Memphis. But anyway, I was so excited to get those $10 that my brother had 10, I had 10. We went on our way. We drove down to Virginia Beach. We were up in New Hampshire, drove down to Virginia Beach, went to the beach, had a ball, playing in the waves. A couple days later, we drove down to Mobile, Alabama, had some fun there, and then we were in New Orleans. And you know, when I got to New Orleans, I realized that I didn't have $10 anymore. Actually, I had spent my money. And I looked at my brother, and he didn't have $10. He had $15. And he hadn't taken any of my money from me. So, I mean, it's, you know, some people always ask me, did your brother steal anything from you? I said, no. He just somehow managed to end up with $15. And that was the first time in my life that I really felt incompetent or stupid around money. So you may have found a time in your life where you didn't feel very smart about money as well. I know for me, that followed me through, because the next time I had $10 from my mom, I was a little afraid. I was afraid to spend it. I was afraid what to do with it. I didn't know. And I started to avoid financial decisions. At a very young age, I did that, but I started then. And for the next 28 years or so, I really didn't want to make any financial decisions. This may resonate with some of you. Then one day I looked around and I realized my husband and I, we had some money, and neither one of us knew how to manage it. So I decided it would become my job to manage that money. And so now I have, over the last 26 years or so, been helping people manage their money as well. So today what I want to do is I want to talk to you about some of the tools we use to help people learn more about their money behavior. I want to help you get some clarity about who you are. I want to talk to you about your money profile, give you an opportunity to take the quiz, the money profile. At some point you can take it. You'll have the information to do that. And talk about how it's influencing your behavior during the pandemic and some steps to improve your money behavior. When we look at this, there's the money profile. This is the website, wealthamplified.com. You go there, you can take it. It is complimentary. It doesn't cost you anything to do. You will get your results, and you'll get an email, and you'll get a video, and you'll get a few things, and an opportunity to set up a time to speak with me about your money profile if you want to do that. So the money profile, I was working for a company, and I was training people, and we were using behavior analysis tools. And I kept saying to myself, there has to be a way to translate these behavior analysis tools to the way people operate around their finances. And so I was able to create this money profile. So it is a proprietary quiz that I have that people take to find out more about how they make decisions around money. You know, we find that if we have, like, what are they called? When you have your emojis or you have your avatars. When you have an avatar, it takes some distance between you and it, and there's less emotion involved around the avatar. So you could say that the money profile gives you 5 different personalities or avatars, and you're a blend of these 5 personalities. So you're not all of one, or even probably all of 2. You're probably a good 3, 4, maybe even you have some of all 5 in you. But if we look at them individually, you can see some of the behaviors that you may have around money, and this will help you understand a little bit more about what you're doing. Now, each of these behaviors can be triggered. So you have triggers in your life, which we can't get into the triggers today, but the triggers are some of the ways you make decisions around money. So let's talk about the personalities, though. Try to make this as fun as possible. It's not supposed to be threatening at all. But here's one of the personalities, and I'm going to use real people to identify some of the traits. So Kevin O'Leary says, here's how I think of my money. I think of it as soldiers. I send them out to war every day. I want them to take prisoners and come home so there are more of them. Kevin makes a good example of what we call the champ. The champ is someone who is using money to keep score in life. They want to accumulate money. They want to accumulate belongings. It's how they keep score and how they feel good about themselves a lot of the time. And they have pitfalls. One of them is that they're using money to keep score, and they'll raid savings to be speculative and gamble. And they look for quick returns and get rich quick schemes. A champ will want to go from A to Z, but skip everything in between and just go A to Z. They make quick decisions. They don't like to have too much information. They want just enough so they can make a decision. So that's the champ. And you may find yourself sometimes you say, yeah, I'm just going to do that. And you could be acting like a champ in that moment. The second personality, we're going to use Meryl Streep. She's the one who says expensive clothes are a waste of money. Now, Meryl can afford any kind of clothes she wants, but she doesn't necessarily spend a lot of money on expensive clothes. Now, you may see her in some kind of fancy dress at an award ceremony, but that's part of the deal of an award ceremony. It's not necessarily how she dresses all the time. She is what we call a tortoise. Tortoises are tried and true. You know, they're slow and steady. Tortoises also hate changes. So they may keep a bad investment longer than somebody else. They may not want to get out of something because it's disruptive. They're loyal. They're loyal to a fault. They'll stay with somebody who takes advantage of them for a long time. Now, have you ever heard the term going postal? So going postal was popular 30, 40 years ago, and it would be somebody who was mild-mannered would all of a sudden lose it and start going crazy, shooting up something, or killing people or whatever. And this is the worst side of the tortoise. But they'll simmer and simmer and simmer, and then they will explode. They normally won't spend a lot of money on themselves. They will sometimes spend money on their children. That is sometimes you find the tortoise is torn because they're very family oriented, and they will sometimes, to a fault, give money to their children when their children probably shouldn't get the money at this point. I had some clients who used to do that, and I said, well, who gave money when you were younger? And they're like, nobody. I said, well, what did that do? Well, that made me stronger. That made me better. So that made me better able to deal with my life. I said, so why are you not allowing your children to do that? So you have to keep thinking about things like that around the tortoise. The third one, we're going to talk about Will Rogers. It says, too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. So Will's statement is pretty much what the chess master would say. The chess master is that analytical personality. You might know a chess master as an engineer or a scientist or a mathematician, but other part of the chess master is they're extremely strategic. So if you know a good business person who makes all the right moves, a lot of times they are going to be a strategic chess master. A lot of business people have part of this it can be overwhelming. If you have too much chess master, you won't make a decision, you'll just analyze forever. Whereas the champ makes a quick decision, the tortoise and the chess master are very slow to make decisions and changes. The chess master isn't just because of change, though. The chess master is looking for perfection. They will analyze everything, looking for the things that don't work, because that's what an engineer does. They try to find the things that aren't going to work so they can fix them. And so they are always looking for perfection. And when it comes to finances, there is no perfect item in the whole financial world. Nothing does everything. But they also have laser focus. They're able to really look at things. And again, they don't like to spend a lot of money on themselves necessarily. I like to tell the story of my brother, who's an engineer, and he doesn't mind me telling the story. But years ago, when he first moved to California, where he works now and lives, my parents went to visit him. And when they got there, he had one bed, one plate, one fork, one spoon, one knife, one glass. And he had been living like that for 6 months or more. So he was just very, he had everything he needed. He didn't need any more than that. He wasn't looking for any more than that. So it's one of those things that, you'll look in their closet. They've got clothes from 50 years ago. or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They don't need to update. They're not usually looking at the latest styles or fashions. They're not replacing furniture. They're not decorating all the time. This is the CHESSMASTER. The tortoise is similar in many ways to this, but definitely this is the CHESSMASTER. The fourth personality, Andrew Morton sounds like the fourth personality. He likes to say, I like eating out. I like buying beautiful paintings and being surrounded by beautiful things. I have to finance that life. I can barely afford a pension scheme because I don't have enough money. This is a guy whose lifestyle is bigger than his wallet. And that happens a lot with people that are considered funsters. Now, funsters are really nice people and they love other people. And as a result of that, sometimes they're easily scammed. They're not analytical. They're not going to look at all the sides of it. They're going to go with their gut. They're going to go with their emotions. For them, hope is a strategy. It's, you know, they know that things are going to get better. They're always going to have a glass half full. They spend or give away whatever money they have. They don't necessarily save. You have to sort of teach them to save. You got to trick them into it a little bit. But the difference, there's another personality after this. The main difference between the two is that the funster actually knows that they should be doing better. They feel badly that they haven't saved more. They may be in their 40s and they're looking at a $50,000 or less retirement plan, and they know they're not doing the job they need to do for their future. But they're stuck in the present. So that's one thing. The champ's in the present, the funster's in the present, the next one is in the present, where the tortoise and the chess master are not necessarily always thinking about the present. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about the past. The funster, the champ, and this next one, which we call the Whirlybird, are all living in the present. So if we look at Sammy Davis Jr., I had more clothes than I had closets, more cars than garage space, but I had no money. He was a big spender. He would always pick up the check. He was always the guy that would pay for things, and if somebody had an idea to go away for a weekend on a whim, he would be the guy that would drop everything and do it. He was all about having fun, but he was never really interested in knowing how to pay for it. So the Whirlybird, they spend more than they make, and they don't keep track of it. Budgets are boring, which can also be said for the funster, and also for the champ. The champ wants somebody else to do it. And then they use retail therapy. I think you all know what that means. It means that whenever they don't feel good about something, they go out and buy something. So that's a really typical pitfall of the Whirlybird. Now, I gave you all this background here on these because I wanted you to have a context for the part of the conversation that we're going to have when we talk about the pandemic. So I'm going to tell you another story because I think this is great. We have all these people that have some of these tendencies, but what about a real person? So I want to tell you about Sally. Sally's a client of mine. When Sally came to me, she described herself as a financial hot mess. She said, you know, I don't know, Pam, I'm really good around my business, but I am not really good at spending around personal. I really, really look at my business and I think I'm doing great and I'm not spending too much money. But when I get to the personal side, I just spend whatever I want. I don't really plan for it. And we had her do the money profile, and she came out as pretty much a Whirlybird funster with a little bit of champ in her. Now, the funny thing about Sally is she had all these stories about how she couldn't save money and be good with money, but really she's very good with money. And she has a husband who's really a very heavy chess master. So there was a lot of conflict in the beginning until they worked out their differences around the approach of money. Because obviously a chess master is going to approach money a lot and buying things and paying for things a lot differently than someone who's a tortoise and a funster and a Whirlybird. Because a Funster Whirlybird's going to put it on credit and not worry about it and go into debt. And as Sally said, she says, if I wasn't married to Jerry, I'd probably have $100,000 worth of debt. Jerry's the one who keeps us from having that debt. So what we've done with Sally is we've created structures for her to be able to save money and to spend money by allowing her to reward herself when she accomplishes certain financial goals. So she can feel good about spending some of the money and actually saving some of the money. And she's been on track now for a number of years. She's doing really, really well. One of the things about Sally is she loves vacations. She loves room service. She loves, hotel rooms. She loves that kind of a vacation. And so now we make her earn it. As before, she would have to pay for it afterwards. Now we make her get to the point, we work with her. I don't make her. We work with her so that she actually can pay for it before she goes. And that causes a lot less friction between her and her husband. So if you do the money profile, if you take the money profile, she's not all of one thing. She's a blend of things. So she's a blend of a number of different things. And in any given circumstance, she's going to act like either a Funster, Whirlybird, or a champ. And you can find yourselves doing the same thing. And again, there are triggers, which we're not going to get into today, that usually indicate which way you're going to go on those situations. So she's a real person. She's a business coach. She's an excellent business coach. She does well. She's now making money consistently. She's saving money consistently. She actually has meetings with her husband to go over the finances, which is something we recommend sometimes. They know what's going on. They both share. There's no more hiding. Something about the Funster and the Whirlybird, they have a tendency to hide their spending from their loved ones. So she doesn't have to hide anything anymore. So there's a lot less friction. Sometimes this knowing your money profile can help save your relationship. So it's one of the good things about it. But let's talk about the pandemic. Which side of you does the pandemic bring out? So if you're a Funster, every personality really has an emotion that's tied to their personality. And for the Funster, it's hope. So as I said before, the Funster has this half glass is full as opposed to half glass is empty idea. They're always looking at things are going to be better. There's always a silver lining. There's always a rainbow. And they're thinking we can get through this together. It's great to have some Funsters around when we're in a pandemic, because they're going to brighten up the day a little bit. They also say, okay, I'll apply for the loan, but make sure that others who need it get their money first. Again, they're always a glass is half full. They don't see a need for the money as much as somebody else. They may need it as much as anybody else, but they want to make sure everybody else is taken care of as well. So that's good. But they also say, I saw a deposit from the Small Business Administration in my account. What's it for? They don't remember they made the loan application or that they're supposed to get any money from it. So they don't really remember what it's for. And then would like to see all those fashion masks. I have a dozen. So have you noticed all the different masks that are out there? All the cloth masks and all the different styles. Well, a Funster will have a tendency to have one in every color to go with every outfit. So that's sort of fun around them. There's some fun things around them, but it's good to have some Funster because it'll help you from getting sad and feeling bad about what's going on as much as you might. The CHESSMASTER has a different take on things. Their emotion is really fear. Now, I know that maybe sounds funny, because you probably think of the people that you know that are engineers, mathematicians, scientists, people with that kind of mentality, and they don't normally come across as fearful, but they really are fearful. One of the fears is fear of making a mistake, fear of making the wrong decision. You find that a lot with the CHESSMASTER. They love staying home and working from home because, again, they're minimalists and they're not social as some other people might be. I'm not saying they never need anybody around them, but they love staying home and working from home. So back to Sally and Jerry, as I was telling you before, they haven't come out since this whole started. And in Arizona, we've been open up for a month now, but they haven't come out of their homes. They're still staying home. They're working from home. They love nesting. They love being together. Now, the reason it works for Sally is because she's with her favorite person. The reason it works for Jerry is because he stays home anyway. He wants to stay home. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He never wants to go anywhere. So you get that working from home and staying from home on the CHESSMASTER. They are the happiest doing that. And they don't understand why all these people think they need to go out and be in crowds. They don't understand being that social. They like social in a very small amounts. They don't like big groups of people. Very small groups of people keep them very happy. So if you're thinking about whether or not, you might see a little bit of yourself in each of these, by the way. You're not going to, you may say, oh yeah, I said that, and then we'll get to somebody else, and you're going to say, oh, I said that too. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Everybody is opening up too soon. They are the ones that are going to be most cautious about going out, about going anywhere. So they're going to think that everybody is opening up too soon. And that, of course, remains to be seen. The champ, actually, the emotion is anger. They will fly off the handle at the least little thing. And 5 seconds later, they'll be just fine. Whereas if you know anybody who's a tortoise, they're a slow burn. We talked about going postal. They go slow, 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 so slow. But when they lose their temper, they lose it and it stays lost. Whereas the champ is angry, happy, angry, happy, angry, happy, off and on throughout the day. But the emotion that really drives them is anger. They're the ones who are saying, oh, they can't make me close my business. I'm not closing my business. Who do they think they are? How do they think I'm going to make it in this world? You know, I have to have my business open. And the governor doesn't know what he's doing. We need to open up right now. Right now we need to open up. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Because they want everything now. And I received all my stimulus money because I applied the very first day. There's one thing about the champ. They will always make payroll. They will always be the ones that can make money. They're also the ones that can lose money. So if you know a really successful champ, they've probably been broke once or twice before they were really successful. Or they were broke, successful, broke, successful, broke, successful. So depending on where they are in the stratosphere, that's where they are. But if there's money out there for them to find and get, they're going to go for it. So they all automatically went for that stimulus money as soon as it was available. It's good to have a champ if you're trying to make money. It's good to have a funster if you're trying to make money. They are the natural salespeople. Not that other people can't be salespeople, but those are the natural salespeople. The Whirlybird, the emotion is annoyance. They're annoyed that somebody's not going to let them do what they want to do when they want to do it. So it's a bit of an annoyance. I really want to go back to the bars and restaurants. I need to see my people. I miss my people. I've got to see my people. I have a friend who I've been watching throughout this, and she posts a lot on Facebook, and she's definitely got this. She's been dying to go out. She was so upset when they closed everything, and she's been talking about how much she wants to go back out. And as soon as everything was open, she was out there. And she was out there with a group of people. Now, these people are also probably dangerous right now, because if you read about how this COVID-19 is spread, it is when you're in a group of people in an enclosed place with not as good ventilation, and that's most bars and restaurants. Well, restaurants may have better ventilation, but most bars don't have that great of a ventilation system. And that's really where some of these new cases are really coming from. One place that they're coming from. So that's another part of the Whirlybird. And then the Whirlybird will say, I saw there was some money in my bank account. I think it was that stimulus money. Now, what can I buy with it? They're not going to think about paying off their debt. They're not going to think about putting it in savings. They're going to look around and say, okay, well, I've been stuck at home. What kind of home improvement can I spend that money on? So it's one of those things when it comes to the Whirlybird, and you're going to find that with the Funster. So what can I spend my money on? I'm looking around the house now. What else can I do? And that's one of the things that I also found with Sally. When I met her, she's always got, at least in the planning stage, some kind of home improvement going. Usually it's in full force. There's always something that's being adjusted, changed, paid, doing something that's going to cost some money around the house. And you will find that. And it is been noticed in the news. If you read the statistics, the home improvement market is doing really, really well right now. And that's a lot to do with some of these personalities. The tortoise really doesn't have an emotion. When the tortoise makes a decision, it's not based on any kind of emotion. So when they make a money decision, it's not based on emotion. When they make most decisions, it's not based on emotion. So what you're going to find here is you're going to find that I received a deposit. I don't know why they're giving out all this money. I don't need it. One thing about the tortoise is if they need to cut back, they will find a way to cut back, and they won't mind cutting back. Well, I have some tortoise clients, and one of the issues with them is they were looking at their accounts, and I'm looking at their accounts with them, and I'm talking to them about their lifestyle and the money that they have. And I said, you won't spend this money. If you had to change your lifestyle to spend the money, you'd probably die, because it's just not in them to do this. It's not in them to go on 6 trips a year. It's not in them to spend the money on any material goods for themselves. The one place they'll spend money is on their kids, as I said before, sometimes to a fault. I can cut back. I don't need to spend as much as I have been. They will always find ways to cut back. They always live below their means. They are always saving money. They are always increasing their bank savings. They are tendency to take very little risk in their savings and in their investments. This is the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. And then my son, daughter needs this money more than I do. I'm going to give it to him or her. I want to give my money to them. And again, we had that conversation, and I said sometimes what happens is they're not allowing their children to become adults. They're not allowing their children to become independent. I think when I have had that conversation and we have put it that way, they have taken steps to make their children a little bit more independent, which is a good thing. Everybody wants to help their kids. Everybody wants to make sure their kids are doing great and that their kids are okay. But you can hold them back sometimes when you do too much for them. So what's next? You want to make sure you have an emergency fund. I don't know about any of you that are on this call, so I'm going to guess that some of you are in these situations where you need this kind of help. You want to make sure you have an emergency fund. And in the past, it was said that you should have 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Now, first of all, I think that you have to look at that on an individual basis. Because if I have some people that 3 months is enough, even throughout this pandemic, but others who need at least a year. It depends on your sources of income. It depends on your age. It depends on what your expenses are. A lot of that has to do with how much you should have in your emergency fund. I think for entrepreneurs, mostly you should have 6 months to a year. 6 months if you think your stream of income won't be impacted by any of these things that could happen. But a year if you think you could actually not have business for a period of time. Like, for instance, if you owned a restaurant when this started, I would hope that you would have had a year's worth of emergency fund, which I know is probably not too many that did that, but that would be great. The other part is it gives you more freedom, and it actually makes you better able to qualify for the funds that are available through this SBA loans and the PPP loans, the EIDL loans, all of these loans. When you have money in the bank, they're more likely to lend it to you. I know, crazy. You don't really need it as much as people that don't have the money in the bank, but you're the ones that can get it. If you can, You really want to continue saving in your retirement account. Everybody should have a retirement account of some kind soon after they get started in business, when they're making some money, when you're not really losing money anymore. When you're making a profit, you should have some kind of a retirement account. And there are a lot of different kinds of accounts that actually help you on your tax returns so that you're paying even less in taxes. You can do a SEP IRA, you can do a simple IRA, you can do a traditional IRA, you can do a Roth IRA. You can do a lot of different kinds of retirement accounts. If you're a big enough company, you can do a 401k. You can actually do a 401k if you're a small company, but usually the SEP IRA is a better way for you to go if you're like a one-person company. I don't know how big the companies are, your company is, but there are a lot of different places to look at that. What I find with many entrepreneurs is they start a business and they forget to pay themselves when the business starts making money. They keep putting the money back into the business and into the business and into the business and into the business. Eventually, for most people, they don't really like their business anymore because it's not rewarding to just keep putting all the money back into the business. Most people need to have a little bit of money coming out for themselves. They need to start paying themselves. And when I say pay themselves first, it means you take some money out of the profits, you put some into retirement, you put some into your lifestyle so that you can actually feel like you have a real viable business. Now, during this pandemic, you really do want to adjust your spending. This is going to take a while to come out of. I know some people are coming out of it quicker than others, but depending on your industry and what you're doing, this may take a while, so you do need to adjust your spending as much as possible. Again, if you have a tendency to be a Funster or a Whirlybird or even a champ, you really want to make sure that you're analyzing where your dollars are going. Where's my money going? If you have books, that's great. If you have profit and loss statements, that's great. You can look at them. When you look at your profit and loss and your balance sheets, they really can they can inform you of what you should do and what you should do next. So analyzing that a little bit more often during this time is probably a really good idea. Again, apply for all the programs that you qualify for. Now, I know the EIDL, you can't apply for that anymore unless you're an agricultural business, but I think there's still some others that you can apply for. You want to look and see if you have a line of credit on your business. That's another thing, that if you don't have one now, after this is over and things get a little bit, credit's getting very tight right now. It's getting more difficult. I know I refinanced a mortgage a couple months ago, and because it was right as the pandemic was ramping up, right at the end, they called me and they said, okay, we have to ask you, are you still in business? Of course I'm still in business. But that was a question that wasn't going to be asked 4 weeks before that. So as things get loosened up a little bit more again, if you haven't received a line of credit on your business, try to get a line of credit for your business. You want to have that to smooth out times when you don't have the income coming in, when you don't have the cash flow. But apply for all the programs that you qualify for. Unemployment, if you're doing unemployment, they still have that going for at least the end of July. They have that extra $600 a week from the federal added to the state unemployment. If you need to do that, do that. Don't say I don't need it or I can make it without it. Take advantage of these programs. You probably need it as much as most of the other people that are getting the money. Here's a big one. Don't use your personal money to fund your business. Once the money comes out of the business and into your savings account, do not put it back into the business. Why do I say that? I say that because 99 out of 100 times, you'll never get it back out again. And we don't want you to put your personal finances in jeopardy because of your business. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, it's all mixed up together anyway. Well, this is an opportunity to actually look and see, how can I separate my personal from my business expenses? Because you don't want to run up your personal debt. That will follow you. The business debt sometimes will not follow you. It depends on how it's structured. So you're really in a situation here. These are things that are what's next, what you can do. We're in a, for some people, this has been a really, really tough time, and the cash flow has really slowed down. I'll be honest, in my business, the cash flow is slowing down because I'm not able to generate as many new clients during this time period, because my new clients usually come from personal appearances, and I can't do that right now. So it's been, we still have some coming in, but not as much, and the pipeline isn't as full. And that's probably true for a lot of people. We are being careful with our spending. We are being careful using our PPP loan. We are being careful about the decisions we make on how to market and what to do. Doesn't mean we're not marketing. It just means we're being careful and we're evaluating the spending to make sure we're going to receive a return on our dollars. That's the critical part of what you need to be looking at. Am I going to get a return on my dollar for this? How fast am I going to get that return? Is it going to take 6 months? Is it going to take 2 weeks? Is it going to take a year? Make sure that you have some that are going to be quicker returns on dollar and not so much long-term returns on dollar for everything. Those are all important things to know. So I'll tell you one more story, and then I'll probably be wrapping up and taking questions. When I was in my 20s, I went to what's called small craft school because I worked at a summer camp and I was going to teach canoeing and sailing. And one of the things about going to small craft school is they want you to be able to paddle a canoe. So I was in Maine, and it was the day to take the test in the canoe. I was 5'3" and 98 pounds. And there were 3-foot white caps on the lake. And no, they don't postpone the test. You still have to take the test. And I had to sit in a canoe, and I had to do what's called paddle. I had to paddle it solo. So it means I sat on one back of the canoe. Well, that means there's very little weight in the canoe, and it's a little harder to make a canoe go where you want to without any weight in the canoe. So I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to get through these waves and make these maneuvers so I could pass the certification. One other person in the group came over to me and said, take a big rock, put it in the bow of the canoe, the front of the canoe, and that will help stabilize the canoe as you do this, and it'll make it a little easier for you. Well, I did. I put the rock in there. I went through the course. I performed all of the maneuvers that needed to be performed, and I passed the test. I felt pretty good about myself at that moment, and I realized that I couldn't have done that without some help. So what I'm saying is, whatever I've talked about today, whatever you've heard today, and you don't have to work with me, but if there's something that I talked about that you need some help with, get some help, because it'll make that canoe go much better and much easier through the water. So that's one of the things I wanted to leave with you. This is how you can contact us if you want to talk about any of this in more detail. I'm at www.wealthamplified.com. That's where you can take the money profile. I have a book by the same name, a best-selling book called Wealth Amplified, which you can purchase on Amazon as well. And my email is Pam at the Hopman Group. My financial planning company is called the Hopman Group. And our office phone number is 520-326-1625. I hope you've enjoyed the stories and the information that I had for you today. And if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in or get them to Maggie, and we have a few minutes to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Pam. That was great. I really enjoyed hearing all about the different money profiles and the examples that you gave us. And I did see that we had some questions come in. Again, a reminder, you can use the chat box or you can email info@savvyladies.org. And Pam, the first question for you is asking if we can be a combo of these money profiles. Is there some type of hierarchy, or do these different sides come out when we're triggered?
There is a hierarchy, And when you take the money profile quiz, it'll show you you're more of something than something else. Like, for instance, myself, I'm more champ and funster, but I've got some CHESSMASTER. Now, depending on the situation, I will get triggered to either use the champ or the funster or the CHESSMASTER. And again, we didn't have time to get into triggers, but that's one of the things that people, part of the triggers are things that happened in your past. So for instance, there's a moment where you decided something when you were younger. We call them money moments, and they're in my book and they're in my program. And those are the triggers. Sometimes when you're reminded of that, you will act a certain way, and it usually fits into one of these particular profiles. But you're going to be you will get your results, and you will see that you could be partially all of them.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pam. This next question for you is saying, I've found myself making more impulse buys online during this pandemic than I normally would. Typically, I'm pretty conservative with my spending, so I'm really not sure what has come over me these last few weeks. Maybe there's a fear of scarcity. Do you have some insight for me on this change in behavior?
Well, again, if you do the money profile, you'll get to see that there are some personality types that you might fit into in that. But impulse buying during this time, a lot of times people do that when they're nervous, when they're stressed. That's when it comes out, and that's very much a funster kind of move. But it doesn't mean you're a funster all the time. It just means that there's something here triggering that response in you. And scarcity could be a big part of it. When they announced that there were going to be meat shortages before the meat prices went up, everybody was out there trying to get, buy some beef or buy some pork or whatever. I mean, I don't know if you eat that beef and pork or not, but, there's going to be a scarcity of this. So hurry up, everybody, put it in your refrigerator, your freezer. And of course, we saw what happened with toilet paper, paper towels, and Kleenex. I mean, you couldn't even find it because people were afraid there wasn't going to be any more of that. So if you want to look at the nature of what you're spending your money on, these impulse buys, are they things that you're afraid of running out of, or are there things that are just going to make you feel good about yourself right now?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great advice. Thank you.
Because if there are things that you're buying to make you feel good about yourself right now, that's a totally different. That's not a scarcity buy. That's something that's to soothe the funster whirlybird in you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. Thank you. The next question is saying that I did a money personality test a few years ago, and I scored pretty evenly on what I would think are two opposite personalities, a spender versus a saver. And I never really understood what that meant. Can you help me figure that out?
I could give you a little insight right now. That might be a longer conversation than we can do here, and you can send me an email and we'll get together and talk about it. But it could be you're a blend. So when I talked about Sally in my group, she was a little Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde about her spending as well. She said, she has a lot of control in her spending in this area, and she had no control in her spending in another area, in her personal side. And what it was is that it looked that way, but really it was that she would get so tired of trying to be so good in one area that she would just let go in the other area. So it wasn't that she was two different personalities necessarily. It was more like she was trying to be what we would say good with her money over here, and then she'd have to let go with it over there. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not, but people are a blend. And as I said, there are triggers, and in certain circumstances, you may act like somebody who's a real tortoise, and in other circumstances, you might act like you're a funster. It's just a blend, and it gives us a platform to have a conversation about behavior.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Thank you. And Pam, the last question for you is saying I've been paying much closer attention to my money during COVID-19. I'm checking the markets every day, checking my online accounts, and I'm hyper aware of my spending. I do want to stay on top of it, but I don't want to make myself too crazy. Do you have some tips for me?
Yeah, don't look at the market every day. It'll drive you crazy. What are your long-term goals? That's what you want to look at, your long-term goals. If you're in the stock market or you have investments that are tied to the stock market, those are long-term investments. What is your time horizon? If your time horizon is 10 years and you're well asset allocated, that means you haven't got everything in one stock. You've got things really spread out nicely. You've got your asset allocation, you've got your balance. Don't look at it that often. Look at it once a week. That would drive you crazy. Being hyper vigilant about your spending is probably okay right now until we come out of this particular time. I'm pretty hyper vigilant about mine anyway. I do look at my bank account every day, I'll be honest with you, but I do not look at, I look at the stock market every day because I have clients that I need to look at the stock market for. But you don't have to be hyper vigilant about most things around money. If you look at them if you look at the stock market once a week, if you look at it a couple times, your savings a couple times a week, or your banking and your spending, you're fine. You need to have a life too. You don't want to be run by this. It could be that you have time and so you can do it right now. Well, find something else that you can do with your time as well.
Okay. Thanks, Pam. So those are the questions that we have for you. So I want to thank you so much, Pam, for a really great presentation. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, the website to take the quiz is wealthamplified.com. And Pam, you said everyone will receive an email after taking the quiz. Is that how it works?
Yes, you'll get an email with your results, and usually we pick the top one and you get a video that describes that in a little bit more detail. There's also an opportunity to schedule a call to review the results with myself. So that's all in that email though. All that information is there.
Okay, great. And we will send out the link so you have it in your inbox along with Pam's contact information. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you. It was fun. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.